Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros and marketers who work for themselves. I am Michelle Kane. My company is Voice Matters, and I'm here as ever with my wonderful co-host, Karen Swim. She keeps us all in the know over there at Solo PR Pro. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hi, Michelle. Good. How are you? I
Uh,
am so thankful that we're racing towards the end of the
I
year.
know. Yeah, seriously. I know we wanted to kick 2020 to the curb. 2021 can kind of join it as well. There's been a meme going around saying, please don't say that 2022 is your year. We're all going to sneak in quietly and not make a big fuss, and it'll all be okay. So,
So funny because I remember last year we were, boldly telling 2021 to come in and behave. And so now I guess we're like, so that didn't work.
right now we're like, would you like a cup of tea, 2022?
Yeah.
Can we get you a
Yeah.
nice warm blanket? Maybe perhaps a chair massage? No? Okay. Yeah. But it's all about managing expectations, which is what we're going to talk about today, and specifically managing client expectations. This arose from a conversation we were having in the Solo PR Pro members only group about, when a client, for right or for wrong, in this situation, we have a feeling that they were kind of reaching, but, basing your results, your media results on, basically your output, like, why should I pay you because you didn't get me any placements kind of thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It really does not work that way. We're sorry. We can't control everything much as we would like. So just, we thought we'd just talk about how can you best at the outset, and we know it's not possible with everyone in every situation, just, set the table and try to avoid that.
Yeah. There are these. I'm glad that you said that because people should not feel that you can avoid everything that can go wrong. You can't. But when these things come up, we all use them as an opportunity to learn and try to put in some protections to help us to not, to avoid these common pitfalls. And so it is really important to not only set expectations, but to keep resetting them. And one of the things in this particular situation that really jumped out at me is that it's not only about setting expectations, but you must be accountable for those expectations. We have a part in that too. So
Yes.
if you engage in a scope of work and you have set up your goals with your client, so again, you really do have to do the work to make sure that things go as well as possible. You want to agree on what the goals are. You want to agree on how you will measure success. I keep saying this over and over again about getting super comfortable with metrics because I just think it's a big mistake to still hear some PR people saying, well, you can't, nothing's guaranteed and nothing's for sure. But there are some metrics that you can put in place. And you have to agree with your client, agree on that in advance of starting whatever campaign or, whatever contract you're doing. And once you have agreed on those, you need to report on them. And so if you say, hey, our goal is to secure 5 to 6 stories for this campaign, and that's the goal that you set, and you don't meet that goal, you need to keep your client in the loop along the way. Particularly, as these days, sometimes something doesn't hit. So you can come back to your client and say, hey, here's what we're running up against. Here's the feedback that we're getting. Here's what we need from you, or here's how we're going to pivot.
Right.
That avoids this end of the whole campaign thing. Now you've missed your goal and the client is unaware that you've missed your goal and doesn't understand. And you're, saying, but I put the work in. And of course you did. You did put in the work, but you have to be accountable as well.
Right. Because oftentimes if the first approach doesn't work, that's an opportunity to work with the journalists and say, well, okay, so this, let's say it's a person, they have expertise in X. Do you have anything coming up that would, help you in a story? Just let us know. We're always here for you. Try to at least keep the relationship going. Or a lot of times it's a great opportunity to make sure that you have, your own patches of land out there. Make sure it's on your blog, and or you're, trying to leverage it on LinkedIn, or, use the channels out there that you can control to at least garner something, or turn it into an opportunity in that way. Sometimes you have to, yeah. And a lot of times, as we've seen, in media relations, it's not the straight, throwing the pitch to the catcher. It's okay, well, let's see what we can do in another way, and be collaborative, and bring some light to this story to get my client, what they want.
Yeah, you're so right, Michelle. And, one of the things that we sometimes don't talk about in setting expectations is, in this particular instance, and this has happened before, I wanted to say something that I wouldn't normally say. So now I found a way to be more tactful than the words that were in my head. Stop taking terrible clients. That's a good
Uh,
start,
yeah,
because if you are putting yourself in position with clients that are nickel and diming, and they want you to account for every hour of your time, which is ridiculous. You don't work at McDonald's. You're not punching a time clock. That's not why people should be hiring you. It's not
mhm,
about hours in, hours out. It's about the value and your outcomes.
mm,
Um, so stop taking terrible clients. Stop taking on these rotten, crummy assignments where people are paying you far too little money for what you actually do, and expect the world. And this past, and probably in about the past 3 months, I've had a few colleagues that, against their own judgment, took on a client because they felt the heart of the story, or it was a nonprofit and they really connected with the mission, or it was a referral for somebody and they really wanted to, nurture that relationship, or,
right,
many reasons are often personal. And I completely get that. There are so many people that I really connect to their story. I really want the win for them. But I've learned, mostly, because I still mess up too, but I've learned to put business first and to
right,
separate those things out, because every single time in my own history that I have ignored that little voice, it has worked out exactly the way that I knew that it would, somewhere in my head. Is that the clients that don't pay you enough really take up the most of your time. They are the least grateful. They are so much work, and you end up being in the red with
yeah,
them. And they're the ones that are not going to refer any business to you.
right,
And usually the relationship is going to end. And so that's kind of what happened with all of these people. At the end, they're
hmm,
like, you expected, what did you expect? I don't even normally take clients on for this low amount. And
right,
you got the same amount of service as clients that pay 10 times what you do. And so
right,
um, my advice is stop. Stop with the
right,
horrible client. Stop devaluing yourself. You do not have to scrape the bottom of the barrel and take whatever comes your way. I
right,
promise you that you are going to do as much work for that horrible, terrible nickel and dime client than you will for a client that has a healthy budget that values your work. So how would you rather spend your time? With a crappy,
right.
crummy, bottom bin basement person that's looking for the deal and sees you as a freelancer, or the client that actually values your knowledge, your expertise, your strategy, and is going to pay you more money for that?
Yeah, yeah. And it's, sussing that out can be as simple as, what's your budget? And I have to say, I still have a long way to go in many areas of my world, but I have gotten a lot better at, oh, your budget's $500. Well, that's not going to go very far, and it's not going to be effective for you. So, as they say on Shark Tank, I'm out.
And you know what, Michelle? I'm glad that you threw out a ridiculous number like that, because I don't think a lot of
Oh yeah,
people realize that some people approach us and they want us to do
yeah,
work for $1,000.
yeah. True
Like,
story. $500. I'm like,
for $500, I can write an email for you. Would you like an email for $500?
yeah. It's like, yeah. The list is long. Oh, we want to do blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's adorable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't know. And honestly, folks, it's not our job to, in those situations, there's no negotiation. And
right,
you guys, if you know Michelle Kane, she is the most joyful, sweetest person in the world. So I know that for her to say, no, thanks. If Michelle Kane can do it, as nice as she is, you can too.
That is so true. And I don't know if it's just, the years I have behind me now and just the experience of it. And you're saying valuing your time and what you do. I think sometimes we get lost in the notion that because some of this, the natural tendency of what we do, right? It's like you're either able to communicate via words or you're not. If it feels
Yeah.
easy to us, these aspects of our job, then we tend to not value them as much, thinking, well, if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? And then, and you are fighting a bit of the prosumerism of the world, right? Well, anyone can do social media. It's like, well, no, 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 no. Have you seen some of it out there? So to be a good communicator, a savvy communicator who's thoughtful, who thinks through all the pros, the cons, the little clouds of rain above your head that could happen, it can tend to feel easy to us because, well, sure, you're going to go into a line of work that you're created for, whatever the word, that you're attuned to.
Yeah.
So that can lead to just thinking, well, it's no big deal. True, but it is. And I will admit, it has taken me way too long to even shrug off that, like, that's your budget now. Because you
Because we
realize,
have to respect our
yes,
business.
yeah,
I think, and I'm also really nice.
you are.
I'm very nice, but
I will vouch for that.
thank you.
No, it's true.
Hard for me to get
Yeah,
here in my
yeah,
life. I'm thankful for people who really mentored me in this area. So the one thing that I've always been very, very good about my entire career is not leaving money on the table, not being afraid to negotiate, and not being afraid to say no. I'm just
right.
not. And that means that because I don't have a scarcity mindset, I refuse that.
Yeah,
People talk about feast or famine. No, that's not how I want to live my life. And it's
right.
not how any of you should live your life either. You do not have to take whatever comes your way. And what Michelle said is true. It's true. When we are gifted in an area, and I believe that if you're in this business, you're gifted in communications,
Mhm.
it can feel as though it's so easy and it's so fun. Like you love doing
Right.
it so much that you forget that it has a value associated with it. But here's the thing, just because it feels easy doesn't mean that it's not valuable. And yes, 10 million other people do the same thing, but no one does it exactly the same way, because the way that your gifts and talents work is that they have a unique expression through you. They're intertwined with who you are, your personality, your experiences, which is why when people are like, oh, somebody else wrote a book about this, but why are there thousands of books on that same topic? Because
Right.
no one is going to say it exactly the same way. And so you need to get that out of your head. Get over the whole imposter syndrome thing.
Mhm.
That's a myth. It's false. I mean, I'm not saying that imposter syndrome is not real, but you don't have to buy into that. You should feel no reason why you don't deserve to be paid like the top performing professional that you are. Because
Mhm.
remember, if you were in corporate America, you would be in the C suite, you would have an executive title. Why would you treat yourself like an intern in your
Mhm.
own business? That's not fair to you.
Yeah, and the the element of fun that you touched on, that's I think that's how sometimes we fall into these little traps of, well, it's
Yeah.
fun. And I know I finally got to the point of, I don't want to be sitting at my desk all these hours. Yes, it's fun and I'm good-hearted, but even even if you don't want to resent it, and I'm not saying that I've resented any of the work or the people, but it's, after a while you're like, oh, why did I say yes? And it's hard. And I guess I'll put it this way as well, because when you get into those situations, sometimes it's even harder to say, no, I'm no longer going to do this,
Yeah.
than it ever would be to just say, no, I don't think that's, and you could just say no, or I don't think that's right for me at this time. And we always talk about this on this podcast. And sometimes it's not even the time you spend, it's the energy you spend. How much energy do you have for your work, your family, your friends, rest? And I'm preaching to myself here too, of course. So keep
Well,
all
that's
of those
why we
things
talk
in
about
mind.
these things, right? Because
Yeah.
we're human beings too, and
Yeah.
no one's perfect. And
Right.
sometimes we fall into, the same patterns. So we have to keep supporting and reminding one another. That's how
Right.
we all get better. That
Absolutely.
we have to have these balances, and we should be, we should be more choosy about the clients that we take on. I promise everyone in the audience, there's enough work out there. It
There is.
exists. You
There
do
is.
not have to take the first thing that comes your way, or it feels like a dry season to you. That doesn't mean that you should, shrink yourself down and say, "Oh, well, I got to take this because, I need the money." It just means that, talk to somebody about how you're sourcing new business. And maybe
Mhm.
you're just looking in the wrong places because the work does exist.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too sometimes as I venture into woo a little bit, sometimes if you're hanging on to this work and you wonder, well, how can I ever replace it? Well, you need to clear the desk a little bit so that there's room for new things, and that can also be hard. I get it, but you're worth so much more, and what you do is so worthy. It's so important. There have been so many things I'm sure everyone has seen lately of mismanagement of communications of things that you just think, oh, this is why we matter. This is why our profession matters. There was a miscommunication in my region recently in a couple of school districts, in light of the recent shooting where I'm thinking, yeah, it's a shame you phased out your comms team 10 years ago. You can't do that on the
So
side and on the fly. I don't pretend to know how to, run schools. So just saying.
absolutely. We are so,
Yeah.
and Michelle, thank you for saying that. We are
Yeah.
so valued. And it's
Yeah.
why, I mean, I don't know if everybody's been keeping up with sort of the industry thing. It's why some of these big, huge companies are hiring heads of PR without even meeting them, without even interviewing them, because
Oh,
there's this desperation for talent. So they're
yeah.
just going off of known talent and hiring these people. We are highly in demand right now. If you
Mhm.
talk to any of your agencies, then you may have heard that they are not able to keep up with the
Mhm.
leads. They can't take on any more work. They've raised their minimum amount. There's
Yeah.
waiting lists. So there's work out there available, and we are so needed. I mean, we're
Yeah.
in an age of mal, and disinformation. Companies need to
Yes.
know how to navigate this landscape.
Mhm.
Just in so many areas, reputation management, crisis management in a proactive way, navigating this landscape of communicating in an era where we really are more focused on um, equity and inclusion.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's a lot. That is a lot.
It is
That's
a
a lot.
lot. Yeah. Yeah. So we are definitely worth what we ask. It's not just blowing smoke ever. But, well, we hope that this has been a nice rah-rah for everyone today. Not that we go for empty rah-rahs. We always wanna have valid points to make. So we hope that you caught a few of those today. And we do value you and your time. And if you found this to be of interest, please share it. Share it around so our podcast audience can grow. And we just want to say we are so grateful for you and thank you for joining us for That Solo Life.